Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is sponsored and learning for this week is dedicated by the Daniel S. Loeb Torah Center, Silver Donors Philip Alush, in loving memory Lunishmat, his parents Yehuda Ben Leoni, and Haya Josette Bat Louise, Zichronam Livracha. Also for Hashem Fortuné, and the continued health for Chana Bat Sima Fega. The year of Breakfast in the Class dedicated loving memory Lunishmat Ruth Orfali Bat Adela, sponsored by her family. We also like to dedicate today's class to the Misaimim, to all those that finished the Masechet yesterday, that we had the Siyum. And we're going to be beginning our new Masechet Be'ezrat Hashem on Tuesday night. Will be our first class of Moed Katan. So you're all welcome to join us. You should be able to finish the Masechet in less than a year. If you'd like to join, let us know. We'll add you to the group. We should go Be'ezrat Hashem Echayel Echayel, and there should be more and more Torah in the Beit HaKnesset, inshallah, going forward each and every year. Let's begin. The Torah tells us something very interesting. Torah tells us that Esav and Yaakov, who are at this point, Esav hates Yaakov tremendously. Yaakov is very wary of approaching him, as we spoke about yesterday. And finally, the time comes where he has no choice. He does all the preparations he can, and he comes forward to greet Esav. And the Pasuk says that Yaakov bowed towards Esav. As he was coming close to him, he bowed 7 different times. Vayaratz Esav lekrato, and Esav ran towards him. Vayichabkeu, and he hugged him. Vayipol al tzavarav, and he fell on his neck, on the neck of Yaakov. And the Pasuk says, right? Vayipol al tzavarav, vayishakeu. And the rabbis say on that word, vayishakeu, which means that he kissed him, that there's dots on top of the word in the Torah. Why? Because one opinion is that he didn't kiss him with his whole heart. Actually, he didn't really want to kiss him. A second opinion says that it looked like he kissed him, but really he bit him. But God made Yaakov's neck become solid, so you couldn't bite him. So what happens when you try and bite a neck of stone? It winds up, you're kissing it. There's nothing. You didn't bite it, you wound up putting lips on it. Different opinions is exactly what it is that happened over there. But I just want to share with you something beautiful that I read in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Fatayeh, which is a great influence on our Rabbi Mansour, Rav Ezriel Mansour, who comes to the Beit Knesset all the time. In his Sefer, Rabbi Yehuda Fatayeh he wrote in the name of someone else, I don't remember who it was, but he brought down a beautiful Hadush. He says, if you look at the Pasuk says, Vayishakeu, and he kissed him. He says, that word, Vayishakeu, literally is the Rashi Tevot, the first letters of every word in the Pasuk. Vayomer, which Esav says, Vayomer, Hachi, Kara, Shemo, Yaakov, Vayakveni. If you remember, when Esav found out that Yaakov took the berachot, Esav says to Yitzchak, this is why it was called Yaakov. Vayomer, Hachi kara shemo Yaakov, Vayakveni. The first letter of each of those words, Vayakveni, Yud, Shin, Kuf, He, Vav, backwards in a row, is Vayishakeu. Why? What's coming to tell you is that the reason why he didn't kiss him with his whole heart, the reason why he wanted to bite him, was because he had in his mind, he remembered that Yaakov Avinu had done this. Yaakveni zeh pa'amayim. The Yaakov Avinu had taken the berachot from him. My friends, the reason why I bring this up is to share what I think is a very beautiful lesson. The first of the lessons is like this. You know, many times, when it comes to things that were done to us in our past, when someone has hurt us, when someone has done us wrong, when they've cheated us, when they've spoken Lashon Hara about us, you know, We have a very long memory. We remember for a very long time that this person, 20 years later, the guy comes. He wants to do business with you. You're like, something, I had enough. From 20 years ago, you still remember. But it's amazing that we have such long memories when it comes to what someone did to us, and such short memories when it comes to what we do to other people. If a guy says something, what do you say? I can't believe the guy is still, it was 20 years ago. Get over it. When it comes to us, what do we think? Right? We think what we did was very small. We minimize. When it comes to what someone else did, we maximize. Esav Arasha, so many years later, is remembering what Yaakov Avinu did, not only in the story of the Berachot, but in the story of the Bechorah. What is he remembering it? V'ya'akveni zeh pa'amayim. Just understand how far back in time this goes. He's remembering a story from when he was 15 years old. Much more than 36 years. Much more than 36 years. You're talking about from when he left. That's the beracha. But to go back to the point where he did the where he did the bechorah, that's when they were 15. So the berachot, the story of the berachot was when Yaakov Avinu was 64. Right? This is now how long? 22 years plus the age of his children, like you said, right? But to go back to the age of 15 years old, and also to hold against somebody something that they did when they were a teenager. My friends, there are some people who, that's how they hold grudges. And that's the nature of Esav. The nature of Esav is to be able to hold on to a hate forever and ever and ever. I think maybe part of the idea of halakha, Esav sonei et Yaakov, is because of this. Is because of the long memory. But the Torah actually asks us not to be people like that. The Torah tells us that if a person does you wrong, and then they come to actually ask for teshuvah, the person says, Rambam says, that after the person has truly come with teshuvah, what should you do? The language of Rambam is what anyone know? He should not be an achzar. What does achzar mean? He should not be cruel. I want to point this out. Rambam holds that if someone has done something legitimately bad to you, but then they've done legitimate teshuvah. Now, obviously, the more legitimate, right, the thing is bad to you, the more the teshuvah needs to be legitimate. Teshuvah doesn't mean you say you're sorry, and you still left the thing that's causing pain in place. Teshuvah means you fix what you did. Teshuvah means you really, but if you did all of that, what does Rashi say? You're achzar. My friends, Yaakov Avinu suffered because of this choice. He had to run away from home. Yaakov Avinu is sending Esav, he's sending you all the gifts in the world. Not only is he sending you all the gifts, he's bowing as he's coming to you 7 times. He's telling you, our father called you a servant to me. Look, I'm appointing you my master. Bowing, bowing, bowing. But still, even after all that, Esav can't forgive him. Rambam's language is achzar. And my friends, that's what it is not to forgive. Let me say, Rambam does not differentiate what the person did to you. He doesn't say if it was a B plus avon. He doesn't say C minus. He doesn't distinguish it at all. So long as the teshuvah is real, to hold in your heart hatred for another person, at this point, the averah, the avon, the sin shifts from that person to you. I always love the language of the pasuk on this. It says, "Hocheach tochiach el amitecha." You shall surely rebuke, right? You shall surely rebuke your friend. Velo tisa alav chet. You're not allowed to hate him in your heart. You have to speak it out. Velo tisa alav chet. And the rabbis have many interpretations for what those words mean. Lo tisa alav chet. But the simplest understanding, and maybe a very profound understanding, is that when you don't forgive somebody and you hold your anger and your hatred in your heart, after he's done teshuvah, his sin, he's not carrying it anymore. You're carrying it. Velo tisa alav chet. Don't carry for him the avon. Could you imagine that the very sin that was perpetrated against you after teshuvah, if you don't forgive, it's as if you're holding that sin against the other guy? All these years that you said, who does that kind of thing? What kind of person lives with that on their conscience? Now that's on your conscience. The Torah is mandating for a Jewish person not to have this element of achzariyut, of cruelty inside of them. My friends, I get this question all the time from people. You don't know the pressure he put me under. You don't know what he did to me. You don't know. I get it. I'm not minimizing the pain or the difficulty the person put you through. But the Torah is telling us, chad v'chalak, if the teshuvah is real, it doesn't matter. So someone asked me, Rabbi, I understand what you're telling me. I just don't understand how to do it. How are you going to regulate that? So I have to share something that I think is very powerful. I learned from my rabbi. My rabbi said as follows. He said that you find all the time in the Torah is regulating, demanding, obligating in the world of emotion. And the question is, how could you tell me to feel something? I either feel it or I don't. How can you tell me to love every Jew? How can you tell me that when I go into battle, lo tira, lo tehat, don't be afraid? I mean, I'm afraid. Imagine you're afraid. Someone tells you, listen, the halakha is not allowed to be afraid. Oh, sorry, I didn't know. Okay, now I'm not afraid. It's fear. It's love. I don't love the guy. I have to love every Jew. I don't love him. Hate the guy. What do you want me to do? Maybe you could ask me not to act on my hatred, but that's not what v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha means. So the Rishonim, they give a very interesting answer to what the mitzvah is when the Torah is mandating an emotion. And they say that a person should do the things that change the emotion. So as an example, there's a Jew that you don't love. What should you do? Chachamim tell us, give to him. Pray for him. The more you give to somebody, the more you pray for somebody, the more you learn to develop feelings for that person. Because in Judaism we learn that love is not a feeling, but an action, which generates a feeling. Okay? From the language of hav, which means to give. Okay? So you're asking, I don't know what you mean. I love him. I want to share with you an amazing example of this that I heard from Rabbi Pesach Kron, and I'm sharing with you this story. It should be a zechut for Refuah Shlema for Pesach ben Hinda. I don't think it's his full name. If someone could Google it while we're talking, I forgot it since we said it upstairs. If someone could Google it, let me know full name to say Refuah Shlema. So there was a fellow who was an expert. He was a doctor. Pesach Yosef ben Hinda. Refuah Shlema Bekarov. Rabbi Pesach Kron told the story. I heard from his mouth. He said there was a fellow who worked with special needs children. Anyway, there's a guy who he meets, and the fellow says to him, listen, I have a child, special needs, but the child has come so far, right? The child has developed so well that nobody could tell that this kid has special needs any more than any of my other children. So the guy says, at the Shabbat meal, he says, I could tell. He says, really? How? He says, you'll see. You'll tell me if I'm right. End of the meal. Meal goes by, walks over to the doctor, the Miss Man, and he says, it was that child. The guy can't believe it. How do you know? Child acts exactly, talks exactly, looks exactly, sounds exactly every one of the other kids. How did you know? He says, I watched. When you gave brachot to each one of your children, your bracha to that child was the tiniest bit longer. And the rabbi explained that when a person invests so much in a child, then your relationship with that child is heightened. Why? Because you have so much invested in that kid. And the more you give, the more you love. So you gave this child so much to catch him up to the other kids. I don't remember if it was a him or a her. That now when you give the beracha without even noticing, you give this child a beracha which is a little bit longer. So my friends, the answer is that when a person is looking at Torah, you don't understand how we're regulating emotion. The answer is to do things that change the emotion. The obligation from the Torah is not love. The obligation is do things that will make you love them. And don't do things that will make you not love them. You're going to war, the obligation is don't be afraid. So what would be included in that? Maybe included in that is refreshing the whole time, when they're showing videos of their parade, their military parade. Maybe that's what you'd be obligated to not watch or to not do. My friends, let's come back here. How does a person forgive when you have a legitimate complaint as to what the person has done to you? How do you not become this akhzar of Rambam, this cruel person that Rambam is discussing? What's the answer? The answer is you have to give to that person. Now, there's many scenarios where a person is not capable of giving to that person in real time, in any meaningful physical way. But giving to a person doesn't have to be material. Maybe giving to that person is giving them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe giving to that person is praying for that person. Maybe giving to that person is praying that they should ask forgiveness, or that they should do teshuvah. When a person does that, what happens? In their mind, they're more connected with this person. They're invested in this person. And now, it's something that you're happy to see when they're coming to ask. Their success has now become, in some way, your success. When we talk about killing with kindness, perhaps this is what we're talking about. So my friends, in a world that has so much hatred in it, I think, as we know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu always rewards us midah kineged midah. Maybe what we need to do, more than anything else, is to figure out ways to diminish, to extinguish hate. To figure out a way to extend forgiveness and understanding. And when we've done that with our own family, our friends, with people who we once upon a time did business with, then things change materially around us in the world. There are two battles that can be fought. The battles that we fought against Lebanon and in Gaza where we lose our soldiers and the battles that can happen while we watch from far away in Syria. Which kind of battle would we prefer? For us to fight, or Hashem yilachem lachem? But the pasuk says that there's a condition. And what's the condition? Hashem yilachem lachem ve'atem taharishun. You be quiet. Many poskim, many great Torah leaders have said that, you know what that means? It means that we should be quiet in synagogue. Tem taharishun. We shouldn't speak in the Beit HaKnesset. In fact, the Tosfot Yom Tov, after the Gezerot of Tach V'Tat, 1648 and 1649, with Bogdan Chmielnicki, where 1.5 million Jews were killed, he indicated and wrote a tefillah that they should say in every single Beit Knesset, that those who remain quiet in the synagogue should have a zechut, they should be saved. Ve'atem taharishun. But I have a different play on this. You know, you don't like somebody. You have a problem with them in business. A lot of times you hear people say, okay, yeah, that's how you want to play it? No problem. You'll never do another deal with anyone in this community. And this guy sets up the printing press. And he starts printing newspapers that had that. And he's telling everyone in the industry, this guy's a crook, this guy is this guy is that. Look, I can tell you one thing. He's definitely not telling them the other guy's side of the story. That's for sure. Right? So all they're doing all the time is spreading that hate to people that are not involved at all. Like we said yesterday, Riv lo, it's a war which doesn't belong to them. We're learning over here that a person that holds on to hatred and anger, and in a time of reconciliation, of hugging and kissing, still has in them a desire to bite, still is recalling the Vayishlach, which is what's the pasuk? Vayomer achi kara shemo Yaakov v'ya'akveni. That's what he's recalling in this minute. He's bringing up the fight at the wedding, at the bar mitzvah. That's what he's doing. This guy, he has no other name other than Esav. That is the most wicked thing in the world. And I think the answer is simple. You know why? Because there's nobody who doesn't make a mistake. There's nobody who's not going to hurt your feelings. There's no one who's not going to have a business deal where you thought he meant this and he thought it meant this. Even if it's an honest mistake. In an honest mistake, we could turn a guy into the biggest criminal and ruin his reputation forever. You don't know. The guy is slimy. The guy is sneaky, devious. He told me this, he meant that. Meanwhile, how many times has that happened with you? That you had to deal with somebody. That you understood the deal one way, and they understood the deal the other way. And it wasn't clear. And whose fault was it? It was your fault for not clarifying. As much as it was his fault. But you turned him into public enemy number one. This guy, what a crook he is. Years later, that's the ways of Esav. My friends, I want to bless us all to be able to do something very simple. To do something that's very easy. And in order to do this, I want to give you the visual. I want you to imagine you get to the airport and you're checking into the airport, and there's very few things that is as annoying as the person behind the checkout counter telling you, I'm so sorry, you're going to have to check that. And the bag fee is $150, $250, $400. You're like, oh, I'm just going to put it in my other bag. You're unpacking, you're giving everyone on the plane 2 items from your thing. Here's my underwear, here's my deodorant. You know, you're passing it out to everybody. Nobody wants to pay. I want you to imagine that you're sitting there and they tell you it's going to be $400, oversized, heavy bag, $400 to bring the bag on the plane. You open the bag. What's in the bag? Dirty diapers. You open the bag. What's in the bag? Rotten food. Is there anyone in the world that would pay to bring all that garbage with them on the plane? What would you tell the lady? Thank you very much, $400, I'm just going to throw this out. In fact, I'll throw it out for free. But my friends, when we take pain and anger and bitterness, we carry it around with us. And you know something, just like in the airport, there's a charge, there's a cost to carrying all of that garbage with you everywhere you go. And you're the one who's paying it. So I'm going to ask you to do what Esav could have, what Esav should have done. And just taken the bag and said, I'm not carrying this garbage with me anymore. And leave it in the bin. And don't check it in with you on the flight. And don't take it with you to the hotel. And then don't take it with you to your family simcha. That's what we do when we don't forgive. Hashem should bless us, Be'ezat Hashem, to be able to be ma'avir amidotav. And when we forgive others, Borei Olam also forgives us. Please join us for Words of Torah with Rabbi Ruvain Ibrahimov immediately following Kaddish. Rabbi Hananya, Benak Hashem, Yatzak Kadosh Baruch Hu Israel, Fika Chibad Yedrom Mitzvot Shnei Amar, Nai Hafetz Leman Tzidko, Yagdil Torah Ve'adir. Amen. And Yeshmer Abba Mevarach. Amen.
I didn't realize you were giving me a handshake up there.
Don't worry about it.
No. If I would have known.
Eva Vatsala Lanu. Amen. Amen. Azakubo.